A-League Access brought to you by Barry Plant.
Hello and welcome to A-League Access, the show that talks about all things A-League and everything to do with the world game in Australia. My name is John McGorran and with me tonight is Bern Merkel. Good evening, Bern.
Good evening, John.
We're excited to welcome a special guest tonight, a Socceroo's legend, key member of the Golden Generation and now FA board member. Welcome, Mark Bresciano.
Thank you for having me.
We have a lot to cover tonight with you, Mark, but first I thought we'd go back to the beginning and find out how your football journey began. You're from Rosanna in the north of Melbourne. How did it all start for you in football? Was your dad a football player or what's the go?
You know what, it's probably hard to answer that question. I think just having that Italian background and obviously a lot of Europeans' number one sport is football.
Yeah.
So I guess it probably came from that. I had two brothers, one older, one younger, and I think my parents probably made the decision for us that at the age of, I started at 5, brought us down to Bulleen Club, which is an Italian social club, and that's where we started, all three of us.
A few good games in the backyard between you and your
there
brothers?
There was always a ball, not only outside, inside, which parents aren't too happy about, but yeah, there was always a ball amongst us.
And what about other sports you played as a young?
Yeah, tennis, motocross, not professionally, but my father used to take us to the tracks.
Footy?
AFL, footy, yes, at school. Cricket, probably missing some.
Genuine all-rounder.
Martial arts, yeah. So I think I know now as a parent, you've got to burn as much energy possible to the kids so they can calm down. So they had 3 boys, so I think they just made us play everything, and yeah, so we did cover a lot of sports.
You were talking about you played for Bulleen. You debuted for Bulleen in the senior team at around 15 or 16 in the VPL. How was that for you? We were discussing earlier off camera that about youngsters getting an opportunity. How did your young self develop from that?
Yeah, I don't remember that exact age, but probably more towards 16 when I made my first appearance in the seniors at Bulleen. I just think the opportunity was there, or maybe the club was looking to develop players, seeing that there was a potential of going to the national or NSL back in those days and move on forward overseas. So yeah, I did all my grassroots football. So I grew up at Bulleen. The soccer club at the age of 5 and all the way through to the seniors. So maybe they saw that as a product of their own club and gave me that opportunity.
Are we giving our youth enough chances here in Australia at the moment, or?
I think I've seen it improving, and only at an A-League level where we're seeing a lot more young players playing this season, which is good. Obviously it does help the development of the players. I hope that's now a focus of all these community footballs and NPL clubs where we can help develop these kids, which I think is both male and female. It's very important for us at a higher level and being able to compete against the world best.
You're also a member of, you went to the AIS as well. There's no AIS football program anymore. That's a real shame. Tell us your experience at the AIS. It's obviously developed quite a few players over the years.
Yeah, I think it has. I personally think it's something that's missing in our pathway for our athletes in football. That did develop me as a footballer. I can say I spent, I can't remember now if it was 1 or 12 or 18 months at the AIS. The time spent there is what actually, I think, just created the footballer that I became. you're living there, so you're training most of the days twice a day. You're going to school, you're eating well, you're amongst all other professional athletes. You're seeing the culture and the attitude of other gold medalists.
Yeah.
So it all rubs off. We're all training together. So that was a very important part of my career, and I think for other footballers that went through that AIS program.
Coming to the club, playing with the seniors at that quite young age, when did you get the feeling I can really make it, I can achieve something as a football player?
Yep. I didn't have it at that stage when I played at Bulleen Seniors. I was probably too young to understand it, I think. When I personally had that belief that I could make it as a professional footballer was probably when I left the AIS, when I knew the hard work, the education, the training that we did there is probably what gave me that belief that I could become a professional footballer.
When you left the AIS, you made the leap to my old club, Carlton Soccer Club. There were certainly some interesting times there. You had a great group of young players there, including your friend Vince Grella, Danny Allsop was there, Simon Closimo, Archie Thompson. That was when professionalism was just being introduced into the game. You know, how was your experience at Carlton?
Oh, amazing. Just what you said, had a lot of players already there that I knew, that I grew up with in the community football scenes. We were the first professional, at that stage, soccer team in the league. So one, I was lucky to be a part of that, and two, it was in Melbourne, which made it even easier. And three, knowing the players that were there already when I came. So great times. And again, that's probably what gave me that exposure to top level football in our league, in the country, playing at the highest level. So.
And you played along with some stalwarts that you obviously learn off, your Andrew Marths, your Savinskis and things like that. So you got some great teachers there.
Yeah, we did. And I think that's the balance, probably it's probably a good recipe to develop players, because sometimes you need that experience. You need the older players, the players that have been there before that can, apart from educate, but guide you through certain things, whether it's at training or on game day. So we were grateful also to have those type of players around at Carlton when we were there.
Yeah, it was good. Now, you also, around that time, you got a chance to go to the Olympics in Australia. You didn't get a lot of minutes, but how was your experience in the Olympics? And it's obviously going to be very different for the Olyroos this year, completely different environment. How do you think, how was your Olympic experience? Obviously being in Australia, very different. And what are we doing to make sure the Olyroos can maximise their opportunities?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Personally, probably wasn't my best experience. One, because obviously the match minutes played. Two, the results. We're playing at home, and I don't think we even got a point. So we lost all three games, which I think was disappointing, especially with the team we had. Yeah. Being at home is probably what made it. Just seeing that enthusiasm, excitement, support from Australian fans in general. So probably that's the only positive I could get out of that experience, just being a part of it. One thing I regret, because we played the day after the opening, we weren't allowed to do the walk around, which I think...
That always happens to the footballers at Olympics, because the tournament always starts early and they miss the walk.
So that's probably one thing I would have liked to take away from that, which we couldn't.
Were you staying in the Olympic Village at any stage or not?
Yeah, we were.
You were? Yeah. I wasn't sure because playing in different states.
No, we did. Well, our first game was in Melbourne, so obviously, we weren't in the Olympic Village, but the other two games we were part of that whole Olympic Village atmosphere.
Good atmosphere?
Yeah, very good. But I'll have to say this, we weren't part of, this is probably why you're asking. No. we weren't part of the Australian group, so as footballers, we were actually separate. So we weren't with the other Australian athletes, which is, again, for me, disappointing because we are one and we should be all together. So I'm not sure why that happened. I don't know the reason behind that, but it is what it is, and we just got on with it.
Did you meet any other very famous athletes from other sports? No chance during that, that Olympic spirit feeling?
Well, you don't meet them, but you see them,
Yeah.
because it's an Olympic Village. We're all sleeping together. We're all eating together. There's different times or different venues where you can go and eat your meals. So obviously you bump into them, but you don't. Well, no one introduces you or formally meet them. So we did see all of them and didn't meet anyone personally.
Yeah.
No.
We just need to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more A-League Access after the break. Welcome back to A-League Access. We've had news in the last week that Mitch Langerak has decided to retire from international football, putting his family ahead of the game. The news has surprised many in the football community with expectation that he might be the goalkeeper for the next campaign. Mark, will this decision by Mitch, it's a great family decision for him. How's that been received around the circles?
With all respect to his decision, we are coming across tough times with COVID, and Mitch has got young kids, a young family, been away from any support through family and friends living in Japan. So we respect his decision, rightly so, and we actually want to congratulate him with the career he had and what he's brought to the game, and yeah, I don't think it'll have any impact because meaning like apart from retirement, but there are also injuries that occur. So the coach has to prepare for that, the team has to prepare for that, and we probably have other players that can step up and take.
It's a really interesting decision from him because of COVID-19 and all that sort of thing. It's probably going to be some decisions that are going to be made by players over the next, time while this is going on, that they're going to have to make decisions.
And they will, and I don't think it's only players. I think it's going to be the coaching staff, medical staff, and all the support that these national teams have around them. It is very challenging, and we are grateful that both players and staff are considering sacrificing their time away from the family, because there will be a lot of time spent in quarantine, especially the ones coming back to Australia. So we're grateful for those people that are going to sacrifice their time. And it is challenging times.
We stay with the Socceroos. I mean, Mark, undoubtedly you were one of the biggest Socceroos that Australia had, and one moment I think everyone thinks about 2005. Would you say that that goal against Uruguay was your biggest moment as an Australia Socceroo player?
100%. Yeah, it's just the timing, the moment, the game, and being the second leg of that qualifier against Uruguay and scoring that goal just to make us equal. I would have to say that, that was probably the most important and most memorable time as a player for the Socceroos.
And Australia being desperate and being back at the World Cup 32 years after '74, again in Germany. So
your backyard.
Yes, and so you played 3 World Cups: Germany 2006, then 2010 South Africa, Brazil 2014. Which was the best one?
I have to say Germany because you're sitting beside me. But honestly, without a doubt, it is Germany.
Yeah.
Just as a player, playing those 3 World Cups, we just felt that there was that football spirit. That was probably the only time as a footballer that I felt there was also global peace. All countries came there to celebrate the game. We felt it as players. We saw it, travelling to training or stadiums. And it just felt like that everyone was enjoying the World Cup. Facilities were unbelievable, well organised. So for me, the 3 World Cups that I played in Germany will have to be the best World Cup I played in.
But then we could say you had the perfect ending with your career with the Socceroos in 2015, winning the Asian Cup on home ground. So since then, and so it's now 6-7 years ago, would you say that where is Australia, where is the national team? Has the team improved worldwide? Is there a bit of stagnancy? Where do you see Australia?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I won't say it has improved, to be honest. I think we'll still qualify for World Cups, which is very important to us. Are we going to be able to compete against the world best? Not sure. We'll see what happens in Qatar. But I do believe that we, as a nation, have been lacking in developing young players. And it's probably something that we need to consider, because we need to build this, both national teams. I think the women are doing a lot better than the men at the moment.
Why is that?
I just see, I think they're going to have their difficulties too now, because a lot of players are going overseas as well. We're losing them. Not saying that I think they will benefit from it as players. I just felt that there was more opportunities for the women and developing. We just need to really focus on developing our players. We should be considered as a developing country, where we do develop players and then release them to overseas to let them continue their career overseas in better leagues.
It is a surprising stat you say that we should be a developing nation. I read the other day that I think the largest transfer fee is still Zeljko Kalac from about, what's that, 10 or 15 years ago. Like,
probably longer.
We haven't been selling players overseas for a long time.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be embarrassed to say that we are a developing country. I mean, look at Croatia, Uruguay, Belgium, Holland. They do consider themselves as developing countries. So their best players don't play in their leagues. They develop them and then release them. So I think that's probably the model that we should be looking at.
Yeah.
Develop them here in Australia, introduce these academies or institute like DIS or even VIS and QIS, and I think we need that just to educate the players, develop, and then let them go, so then they can then play in the best leagues in the world.
I have one question coming back to your international career in Italy. So when you started playing for Parma, so you were 7 million euros worth at that time. It was told the biggest or most expensive Australian player. Did that do anything to you? Did you feel any additional pressure to prove extra?
Not really. No, I was aware of that transfer fee.
Yeah.
I don't think it applied any extra pressure, because the pressure alone playing in those type of leagues, I think, just gets created on its own.
Yeah.
So I was probably good at dealing with the pressure. It didn't add any additional pressure. It was just nice to know that I was in that bracket, that, you know, I was one of the highest transfer fees in Australia.
And there was one situation where you were close to signing with Manchester City. Tell us what happened there.
I wasn't close. I signed.
Yeah.
So my personal contract.
You trained with them, right? Already?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
So I was there for about a week. Signed my personal contract, but just for the ones that don't understand, both parties need to agree. So the player needs to agree with the contract, and then the two clubs need to agree for the transfer fee. So my part of the deal was agreed, signed, done. And I won't tell you the long story, but the short of it, it was between the clubs, the transfer fee. They couldn't come to an agreement, and that's how the deal didn't go through.
I mean, I can just imagine how big you must have been disappointed at that stage, because you, as said, you were already in Manchester, and then you had to go back to Italy, right?
I had a house. I already signed my rent. So everything was there. My wife was in Italy packing up, getting ready to move across. So I will tell you that was my worst year that I played in all of my career. Because just of that, it's not because I didn't want to be there, it's because mentally I was somewhere else, and I had to scratch that and go back to it. It was very hard.
And now looking back, what happened during those years in Italy? I guess you saw a lot of big stars playing against you. How many jerseys do you have at home?
And I have to thank my wife for this, because up till, I reckon, my last 3-4 years playing in Italy, I was not interested in getting jerseys.
Really?
Yeah, not one. I didn't get one. And this is something I regret. And if there's any players out there playing now, collect as many as you can, because they are very good memories. And I'm grateful that my wife put that pressure on me, and I do have a good collection now. I don't know how many there are, but yeah.
Any highlights?
Jerseys. What's your pick of the bunch in the
Pick
cupboard?
one player that you would like that played in the Serie A. And I've got it.
Oh, really?
I'll have them, and it was only because of my wife. And that 3 years I was on a mission, I had to get them all. So I got all the best players that played in the Serie A, in my view.
Yeah. Any good international ones you got off swapping your jersey with anyone?
I only collected World Cup jerseys of oppositions, and I always tend to go for the player that I played with. Yeah. So Nakata, Seric, Croatia, Adriano, Brazil. Yeah. Can't remember anyone else. Gilardino, Italy. They're the national team ones.
Yeah, that's good. Look, we need to take a short break, and we'll be back with more A-League Access after the break. Welcome back to A-League Access. Big news in the A-League this week, with Macarthur FC and Sydney FC announcing plans to establish state-of-the-art training facilities. The Sky Blues will establish a $20 million home base at Macquarie University, while Macarthur are set to reap the benefits of a $38 million centre in Sydney southwest. And also the Matildas will build a home of football in Victoria. Mark, it's great to see investment in the game at both clubland and for the national teams. Is a really important step in the game in Australia.
Yes, very important. Just to see any sort of development, and just seeing that we've got both Macarthur, Sydney looking to invest in their own facilities, but also having state government and federal government putting in so much money to build out here. I think it's in where's the university? Bandura University, sorry, for the Matildas, which is great to see.
How is the FA going, encouraging more government investment like other sports get? You know, the Legacy 23 program is a great start, but how's the FA working towards getting more government funding on board to help build these things? Yeah,
well, it's a good step with the new release of I think it was 100 mil for the Matildas. But I think it was something that we were lacking. We saw other codes, or we still see that they get good funding through state government and federal, but it's something that we're aware of. It's something that we're working on. We know it was, in the past, things that we didn't tap into. Yeah. So we know as a board that's where we can help our players, help the community football, help national teams improve and benefit from these fundings.
We've now got a home for the Matildas. Are we going to look for a home for not necessarily the Socceroos, but maybe the men's national team or the youth ones? Are we still looking for that in Sydney somewhere maybe?
We are. I just don't know how much I can disclose, but it's something that we're looking at, to have some sort of home where we can, one, obviously be operational out of, where all the employees of the FA can work out of, have facilities where all national teams can use for camps, where it's the Matildas, Socceroos, or the youth national teams, and also like somewhere where we can pay our respect to the history that we've got in football. You know, we've got a lot of history there, and you know, we can also look at a gallery where we can display, you know, our history in football in Australia. We've
got Bern, our German friend there. The person who has the largest collection of Australian jerseys over history is actually a German. Oh. He's a German fan of Australia, and he has his own football museum of Australian jerseys in Germany.
Or you should call him and ask him if he can put the jerseys in there.
It's fantastic to see, but that is what we're missing. We're missing a history of our game and a home to call us to call home.
100%. And I think it's very important that not only us, but even the young, new generation know the history of football in Australia. I mean, it's a rich history. It's been around for a long time. Multicultural, so it's something that we should be celebrating.
And also Australia now really continually playing the World Cup, right, which hasn't happened in the past, but since you came in 2006, right, Australia is there now, and that makes it also, I think, more, there's a lot of what's happening on the national team level, right? If the Matildas and the Socceroos are successful and there's a good boost, and if not, then that's what I felt after 2015. You won the Asian Cup, and then that whole hype that was created, it really slowed down a fair bit. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, probably. Honestly, I think it has. Not to anyone's fault, but it's just sometimes, like what you said, performance on the field is probably what creates that enthusiasm and probably really captures the fans. So, and that's why I keep saying it's so important for us to really focus on developing players, so when we get to the highest level, we are competing against the world best.
Mark, you're now an FA board member. How has that been for you coming into that sort of role, and how has being a recent player shaped your input in that, being on the board?
Okay, well, it's a good eye-opener because honestly, as a footballer, I had no idea the amount of work that goes on behind closed doors. Very ignorant, and I think the footballers of today are the same because we are purely only focused on ourselves, performing and training. But we have to realise that there is a lot of work, regardless if you're a board member or not. There's a lot of volunteers, community football, that put in so much time that we're not aware of. So that's that to the side. Now, my input as a footballer on the board, I mean, there's not much more I bring to the board but my knowledge of football. So I think it's important to have football knowledge on the board.
Would you like to have more?
I don't think we've got Amy Duggan, ex-Matilda, and myself as an ex-Socceroo. I personally think that's enough because we do rely on and need other skill sets on the board. There's other things that obviously operationally need to happen and need to work on, and we've got the right people on the board to do that. So I think that's a good number. So yeah.
The FA has had a quiet 12 months with no national teams in action. How's the FA coped through COVID and preparing for a hectic upcoming schedule over the next 2 years of national team football on all levels?
Well, it's not only the FA. I think football globally has been affected through this COVID-19. Every industry, not only football, every sporting code, every work industry, workforce, teachers, students, everyone's been affected. And I think it's just a time that, and it's probably the most important time, that we come together, and that's something that we're really trying to enforce, that as a board, we just need to unite again through all stakeholders, all member feds, the federation, national teams, A-League, just everyone come together, because we are probably facing the darkest moment in our sport due to COVID. And this is probably our only way out, is if we fight together, come out of it together, and I think we'll reap the rewards at the end.
A completely different question apart from the board, probably what a lot of people would be interested, will we see Mark Bresciano one stage as a coach?
No, no chance.
Not at all?
Not at all. It's never crossed my mind when I was playing, when I retired. Never thought of it. I just think that is the most challenging role in the world. I mean, as a footballer, I think it was hard enough. As a coach, you've got to be more than a coach these days. And it's just something that I don't think, it's never interested me, and I don't think it ever will.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, last question as a football fan. The FA has had a difficult relationship with football fans over the last few years. Crowds have been down in the A-League and Socceroo's fixtures. How is the FA and James Johnson going about repairing the relationship with the fans so we can get the passion back into the stands for the Socceroos and at the A-League level?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I just see, obviously with COVID-19, I'm going back to that again, it didn't help because you were growing apart. There was no national team games. It was hard to finish the A-League season last year, which we did. Yeah. I don't know, I just see it's going to come automatically, just with games now being introduced now into the international component, with Oliveroos and Matildas now playing in the Olympics, which I don't think since 2004 that we were both in the Olympics together. We've got the qualifiers coming up. We've got the World Cup, Women's World Cup coming in 2023, which is going to give us a massive boost there. We had that unbundling of the A-League, where now the A-League clubs are in control operationally for the league, which I think could benefit, which will leave us as a board and a federation to focus purely on grassroots community football national teams, Indigenous programs as well. So I think that alone, and I think more importantly, has to come through the success of the A-League and success of our national teams to try and get that fan base back.
Yeah, look, it's going to be a challenging time ahead, but unfortunately we've run out of time. We could keep talking football forever.
Absolutely.
It's been great having you along. That's all for this week's edition of A-League's Access. Thank you, Bernd.
Thank you, John.
And special thanks to our guest, Mark Bresciano.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next week for more A-League Access.
A-League Access brought to you by Barry Plant.